her home and her at her cooking station. So if you have any trouble, let her know. We'll be posting chat questions, or if you want to come off mute and you can sit to ask her questions along the way, and she will do as best she can without messing up while she's cooking. So again, welcome everybody. Nice meeting of you, and thanks for being part of Inspired. Just starting now, I see. Another minute, but we will be recording the session. A reminder as always. And I wanted to say just a few words about Harshini before I do this. She is an incredible cook, and many people in her APLP cohort, 14, wasn't it, Harshini? 13. 11 beneficiaries of that. But wanted to also just mention that she has a lot of experience with the environment, not just in cooking. So a few things about her you wouldn't know from this are she did a triple degree in environmental science and botany and chemistry, and then a master's degree in biodiversity, ecotourism, and environmental management. So she's currently the program manager at Biodiversity Sri Lanka. And what I think is really cool about the work she does there is really working with corporate strategies and private companies and biodiversity to help them support and meet their targets in a mutually beneficial relationship. So I'm going to introduce that part of Harshini, and she will introduce the more important part for right now, which is her cooking skills. Harshini, thanks for doing this and demoing something new for all of us, and staying up all night apparently to prepare. And I know your entire family has been involved in this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. Ivon and aloha, everyone. Thank you for logging in at this time, wherever you might be in the world. It could be morning, afternoon, evening, but as it goes with food, there is no particular time for food. So likewise, thank you so much for logging in at this time. And welcome to a cookery demonstration from the Resplendent Isle. So that's basically Sri Lanka. And I'm from Sri Lanka, Colombo specifically. And I'm here at my home today, trying to teach you a few things about Sri Lankan cookery. Don't consider this as a typical cookery demonstration. I'm going to be talking to you while introducing each and every ingredient that I'll be using today. If there are some backstories to either of the ingredients, I will tell that to you. So it'll come off as a series of little bits of story. So thank you once again for logging in. I would like you, as a first step, to please mention your name, where you are from, and what is, and to also answer the question, what is your favorite cuisine? And why you like it. You can please answer those questions on the chat box. Maybe I'll get a copy of the chat box later from Christina.
Okay.
So today we're going to be trying out cooking together a few items from Sri Lanka. If you are aware, Sri Lanka is an island country. So just like Hawaii, coconut plays a huge part in our cuisine. We use a lot of spices, for instance, like pepper, mustard, turmeric, green chilies. So all these things, add a little bit of spice to the food. So in order to, balance it all so that people can actually eat the food that we cook, we use coconut milk. And not only coconut milk, a lot of coconut-based products are used in Sri Lankan cuisine. So today, just to give you an example, today's demonstration, I will be using, for instance, coconut oil, coconut vinegar, grated coconut, coconut milk, and this is treacle, which is from the fishtail palm or kipul, but this is also can be made with coconut. So, but today I'm using the other, the syrup from the other palm, the relative, cousin coconut. Okay, so I just wanted to introduce, and tell you that coconut is an underlying theme which, peaks up in every kind of dish that we make here. To start off, I will be making kol roti. Kol meaning coconut in Sinhala, and kol roti is a type of roti. You all would have heard of rotis from India, and in Sri Lanka traditionally we don't have any rotis. It's basically a blob of a traditional millet and stuff, which is mixed with water and made into a blob. Blobs were what we used to eat before. They were called kalapa. But roti, since wheat flour was introduced to Sri Lanka, roti became a favorite snack, or even for breakfast or dinner or lunch. Kol roti has been, they've started to make it. So for this, I'm going to use, traditionally they use all-purpose flour or plain flour, as you may know it. But today I'm going to be using whole wheat flour because it's healthier. So I'm going to take one portion of whole wheat flour, put it into an empty bowl, and a similar portion of normal flour, plain flour. Mix it up together with a teaspoon of salt. And now you see this mixture, the same amount of coconut goes into this. Now this is exactly why this roti is special, because nowhere in the world do people put coconut in rotis. Rotis are usually made with plain flour and of course oil or butter or ghee and a little bit of water, salt. Those things remain the same, but coconut, grated coconut, is never really added on. So that's what makes the Sri Lankan kol roti different. So we mix it all up, add a little bit of water. My hands are clean. And mix it until it comes to a consistency where you can form a little disc out of it. So I hope you have all responded to the couple of questions that I mentioned earlier.
Yes, Hashini, we have lots of answers. People reminiscing about Holly Manoa, their mother's cooking in Nick's case. Some people said they can smell what you're cooking right now. Here I can smell the coconut in French Polynesia, apparently.
Nice. Nice. I look forward to reading all those later on.
Good.
When I go hands-free. Okay. So you see the consistency here is somewhat like this. It breaks up, but it is still sticky. Breaks up, but still sticky. So traditionally or normally, this would be it for this mixture. But what I'm going to do is add a little bit of, spices into it. Just give me 1 minute. I need to wash my hands.
That's completely fine.
Right. So today what I'm going to do is, to this mixture, I'm going to add a few shallots. These are called red onions in Sri Lanka. I don't know why, because they are obviously red and they need to be red onions, nothing else. But they're called shallots in other parts of the world, as far as I know. So chop them a little bit, like just in little slices. You can make it thin because otherwise when you cook the roti, the onion doesn't get cooked well. But you need it to get cooked well. So just slice it thinly and add it on to the mixture, the flour mixture. And also I'm taking a green chili, chop it up into very thin slices, same thing. You can add anything else also if you like. You can add a little, a little beaten up egg, or you can add pieces of little small chunks of meat or fish. But this is a vegetarian dish, so I'm going to leave it this way. And then mix it up again. In the meantime, I'm going to heat up the oven, the cooker. And put my pan on top of it. You may have tasted a number of, a variety of rotis if you have visited or been to an Indian restaurant. Do let me know what types of roti you have had, because there may be certain things that I've never had and I would like to try.
As you need to already request for you to share the recipe. I don't know if it's possible or if it's in your head.
It is in my head because me, for one, I don't really use, I know I'm not very conversant with quantities. It's all, in my eyes really, not even in my head. So based on what I see is how I add the ingredients. But I will try to, put together a small recipe, and then I will post it on Discord so that everyone can share it. So I'm going to add a little, just a little bit, maybe about 2 tablespoons of, no, actually 1 tablespoon of coconut oil. And just to make it tastier, a little butter, just a little swab of butter. I'm not sure if you hear the sound, but you take a little blob, maybe use an ice cream scoop, and form the paste into a little disc, right? And when the oil is sufficiently heated up, just plop it there. But do it one by one, because you don't want to crowd your pan and then get everything stuck together. The paste is quite sticky, and it has to be sticky when you put it on the fire. And then, once you put it on the pan, just flatten it a little bit. Hands are the best. You can use anything else, but hands are the best for me. So we'll let that cook. And I'll show you how it comes out once it's done. So that'll take some time. It'll take some time to cook, and you need to turn it so that both sides get cooked, and the flour in the middle also gets cooked, yeah? So that's done. I'm going to leave this aside. And then until that gets cooked, let's get into the condiment which will accompany the roti. So that is called katta sambal. So it's a type of sambal. Now you would have heard of sambals from the Malay Peninsula and Indonesia. They eat a lot of sambals. But I think each and every country has their own little, recipe for a chili-based paste. And this is it for Sri Lanka. It's called katta sambal. The basic ingredients is salt. So I've got a mortar and pestle here. I prefer to use this. You can also use a grinding stone, or you can also use even a magic bullet or a grinder, no problem. So just say 2 teaspoons of salt into the thing itself. Okay, and my roti can be turned now. And I'm going to flatten it a bit further. so that it becomes nice and crunchy. Some people like it thick so that it's soft in the middle. I like it crunchy, so I flatten it as much as possible. Okay, so back to the kattasam ball. 2 teaspoons of salt and chili flakes, flakes of chili. That's about 6 teaspoons. So this is a really hot, really nasty, in the sense, really spicy condiment. So what we need to do is, we need to pound this, the salt and the chili flakes. Why you put the salt in there is because that helps break down the chili flakes even further, right? So we need to get them as tiny as possible. Then into this, once you see that the chili flakes have broken down to a tiny size, so that's when all the taste comes out, yeah? You can add a few shallots, maybe to the quantity that we took, maybe around 10 or 12. And yeah, and then the secret ingredient, which makes it non-vegetarian but yummy, is Maldive fish. Now, Maldive fish is a type of unsalted dry fish. Sorry, guys, I don't want the roti to get burnt, so there's no time for it. So unsalted dry fish, it's called Maldive fish because even Sri Lanka gets it down from the Maldives. Yeah, so it's typically tuna, which goes through a process of dehydration, actually boiling and then dehydration. It's done in huge cauldrons in the Maldives. We don't make this here typically, but we get it down. We import it, and it comes in pieces like this, if you may see. And then it's also pound into little pieces, little chips, right? I know Japan has a similar version of it. They call it tuna chips, simply tuna flakes. I think you can get something like this anywhere in the world, but if you prefer, you can just leave it out, no problem. So my husband likes a lot of Maldive fish in his kattasam ball. I'm going to just put everything in. That's about 4 teaspoons there. In the meantime, I'm going to take out the pav roti. And I will show it to you. Yeah, so that's ready. So you see, that's how it turns out. You see these black spots? That's a little burnt, but that's supposed to be like that. You need to burn it a little bit in places. That gives a little, it gives a nicer crunch to the whole thing. So I'll just taste a little bit. That's great. That's great because I've used whole wheat flour. Whole wheat flour makes the crunch better, and also the inside, the middle part of it is very well cooked by now. So if it's too fat, it won't cook well, and also it'll be soft, but some people prefer that. So it's really according to your taste, yeah? So that's the pav roti, which I will leave here.
You have people trying to come through the computer and eat that, Harshini. Oh, someone's asking if you can freeze the dough for it. Can you?
Yes, you can. You can. But the frozen dough won't come out the next day when you make it. It'll take time. You'll have to thaw it. You'll have to thaw it properly and then start. Put it on the pan. Yeah. But similar process you can, not for more than a day though. It won't taste good.
Okay.
These fridges really don't help you maintain taste in food. They spoil it. So I try not to use the fridge as much as possible. Eat fresh food, it's good for you. Okay, so I'm not going to do this pounding for long because it's going to take time. So basically what you need to do is keep pounding this. So what we put in this is 2 teaspoons of salt, table salt, 6 teaspoons of chili flakes, about 12 shallots, 4 teaspoons of Maldive fish, right? And then the last ingredient is lime. So basically, one lime for that amount, one whole lime would be a good quantity. So that's going to take some time and some effort to do, which I'm not going to do now because it's just going to waste time. So I'll show you the end product though. 1 second.
It sounds like we have some Sri Lankans on the call. We're jealous.
Yeah, some of my school friends really.
Oh, no.
Okay, so that is that's the end product. That's what it looks like. It looks pretty similar to the symbols which you get in Malaysia and Indonesia. But as I said, the secret ingredient is scalded fish, right? So this goes really well with the pol roti. Yeah, that's a little bit of that. And the roti can also be accompanied with things like fish or meat or typically curries where you can soak the roti in and gulp it down. So that's one part of the demonstration today, which I have done for you all. So this can be eaten at any time of the day, and it's a favorite among travelers, people who travel around the country. They make this and take it, and also it's available in all parts of the country. So that people stop and have a small snack and typically have a ginger tea with it, which also I will show you how to make today. So that's 2 items down. So if you have any comments or questions regarding those 2 recipes, please type them in. And then maybe Christina or someone from the East West Center can tell me what they are so that I can answer them for you.
Sure. Mostly
Right.
delicious looking.
Right, so the next thing I'm going to make is bandaka tel dala. Now bandaka is lady's fingers. Okay, so I've got one lady's finger here. Looks nothing like my finger, but yeah, that's the really long lady's finger. You get the shorter version of it, maybe like this size or so, which is called okra. And that's what you normally get in India, mostly get in India. That's okra. This is a longer version of it, and we call it lady's fingers. In Sinhala, it's called bandaka. Now, what we need to do is, bandaka, as you know, is very slimy inside. But there's a way to take the slime off. I'll show you now. This is a washed bandaka, which I'm going to cut into small, thin slices. For this particular recipe, we need to cut it into small, thin slices. And also, just to an angle, so that it just looks good, yeah? Do you see the thin slices?
The original origin of ladyfinger or okra, where that crop was originally from?
I'm not too sure of that. Where it originated. I'm not too sure of that, but it is a local vegetable. It's been growing here. It's not really introduced. It's not an introduced vegetable. But I'm sure what was here was the wilder varieties. Now you get all these, varieties which have been improved. Sri Lanka doesn't allow genetically modified organisms into the country, and we don't do that either inside the island. So whatever we get is regular stuff. But of course, improved maybe for taste and size and stuff like that. So what we need to do is take the bandaka, put it into a small bowl, and squeeze half a lime into it. That is what takes off all the slime. If you like, you can just add the slice of lime along with the skin into the mixture. And then that will take off all the slime. It separates the slime from the pieces, vegetable pieces. And I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. And this is chili powder, not paprika. I don't like paprika. I don't know. I came across paprika in Hawaii, And I just tried it out and I figured it has a lot of color, but no taste. But this is real chili powder. Yeah, that gives the real kick. So 1 teaspoon of chili powder, and we mix it all up. Once again, sorry, I'm so used to my hands, using my hands. I use them all the time, but here I'm going to use a spoon and mix it up. So typically you would leave this for about half an hour so that the bandaka or the lady's fingers absorbs the salt and the chili powder well. And also you allow enough time to for the slime to separate out from the vegetable with the lime that you have added in. So that's what the mixture looks like, right? So in the interest of time, what I've done is I've already done this, left it out for half an hour, and deep fried it. Now the next step is to deep fry this in a pot of oil. Just deep fry it until it becomes crispy and crunchy. Don't leave it for too long because then the color changes too fast. Just try and get it into a color where it's in between green and brown, right? And that's good enough for crunch. So I've done this procedure earlier, and I've got a lot of lady's fingers marinated like this, and then deep fried, and it's quite nice and crunchy, even to eat it just like that. The next step is to switch on the stove. Add a little coconut oil. Of course, you can use any other oil, but since this is a Sri Lankan cookery demonstration, I prefer to stick to the coconut oil. So that's about 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. And these are mustard seeds, black mustard seeds. You get the white one also, but typically we use the black mustard seed. And this is smaller. In India, you get the really big mustard seed, which is almost like a peppercorn, but this is really tiny. Yeah. So we add, for that quantity that I've fried out, I'm adding 2 teaspoons of mustard seeds into the oil that is heating up. We got to wait till the mustard seeds start popping up. So until that happens, I'm going to slice up a big onion, a big red onion. Thin slices, typically first halve it and then slice it up. We don't want rings in this case. We don't want small little tiny pieces. We want half rings. Okay, now you see you may hear the mustard is popping. Right, I'm going to add that in. So when you add it in, make sure you crush it so that the rings or the half rings get separated. And that allows it to be soaked in the oil pretty well. Then a little stir. And then I'm going to take 2 green chilies. Again, I'm going to cut it in a slanted manner. Sometimes it gets mixed up with the lady's fingers. And small children don't like it because they think it's lady's fingers, but it's actually green chili. But it's fun to see their reaction. So 2 green chilies sliced in a slanted manner and added in here.
Harshini, Nick is disappointed about something about your session.
Sorry?
Nick is disappointed in one thing about your session.
What?
He says he wants you to have a big chef's hat.
Yeah, I think that would make my figure a bit proportionate too. But next time, okay, the next ingredient I'm going to add in here is garlic. So maybe about 4 cloves of garlic. You know, garlic, good old garlic, available in most countries. It's not a Sri Lankan condiment. It's been introduced to us, even green chilies really, have been introduced to us from South America long years back. This is during when the British had colonized Sri Lanka. They introduced a lot of stuff because obviously they were all over the world and they managed to bring things in and take things out, take a lot of things out, but no disrespect, but you know, it happened. We all need to accept it. So garlic and onion and green chilies were introduced to Sri Lanka from South America. So 4 cloves of garlic there. And you may know this is available at in Hawaii. I've used it there. I purchased it there. So this is called curry leaf. Curry leaf, and it's available in India. In Hindi, it's called curry pata. So just take off the leaves from the sprig. I'm going to add about 4 sprigs of it. And let that cook a little bit. Right? So that is what is happening in there. I'm sorry I'm unable to show you what's happening right here because I'm not able to use my phone for this call, but maybe when you visit Sri Lanka or when I come that way, I could show you in person. Also, if you can let me know in the meantime, what kind of oils have you tasted? Maybe seed-based oils, could be, you know, based on fruits or fruit oils, spice oils. What kind of oils have you tasted? Let us know. Let me know in the chat box, and I'll check them out. I'd be interested in. I'm equally learning from you as much as you may be learning from me, right? So that's that. And then next, I'm going to add some chili flakes, but the chili flakes can stay out if you don't like too much spice, right? And the chili flakes should not be added at the beginning because they burn really fast. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm short of a little bit of oil. I'm going to add a little bit more oil. Make sure you separate out the rest of the ingredients from the middle of the pan before you add the oil. And once you add the oil into the middle of the pan, let it heat up and then mix the rest of it. Because when you put stuff into cold oil, it just soaks up, right? Gets soaked in and it doesn't taste good after. Right, so that's gonna cook a little bit more. But what I'm going to do in the meantime, before I add the chili flakes, is I'm going to start on the fish. So this is a typical southern Sri Lankan fish dish. For this, I've taken kumala malu. I don't know what it is called in English, unfortunately. But it is a small white fish, which basically looks like this, right? So it has been gutted and cleaned and descaled. So I've got 2 of them here today. Make sure you take a small white fish, small because that's when all the flavors can get immersed well. And white because, again, for this particular dish, white fish tastes better because otherwise red fish tend to drown out all the rest of the other flavors because that has a stronger flavor, right? Okay, so since I introduced the fish to you, I'm going to go back to my lady's fingers because now, I don't know if you'll see it, but see the onion has started to brown, right? So once it starts to brown, the onion and the green chilies, the garlic and the curry leaves, you can add the chili flakes. So I'm adding 2 teaspoons of chili flakes today. Mix that up a little bit. You can turn down the flame. You don't want the chili flakes to get burnt. And then we add the lady's fingers. By the way, the lady's fingers were fried in coconut oil, yeah? There's a lot of coconut, as I told you at the beginning, going through all the recipes here. So I add the lady's fingers, which have already been deep fried, mix it up. And finally, you may note that we added salt into the marinade of the lady's fingers, but once you mix it up with the rest of the ingredients, the salt tends to become less and you don't really feel it. So you just need to add a little bit more, a tiny bit more, maybe around just about half a teaspoon of table salt into this mixture. Mix it up again. And the secret ingredient, just before you take it off the fire, it's almost done now. Just before you take this off the fire, squeeze in half a lime or lemon. You could use lemon too, but lime is stronger. So if you're using lemon, maybe half a lemon because you need that much for the flavor to pop out. So what lime does, or lime or lemon does, is it makes the flavors of the other ingredients pop out. Similar job that salt does, but this gives a little tangy flavor too, obviously. Mix it up. And it's ready to eat. So this is another accompaniment which you can have with the whole roti, or even rice, or bread, or any other type of roti. I love this because I love lady's fingers, but I need to warn you about something. Lady's fingers, in the Sri Lankan medicinal culture, according to Sri Lankan medicine, ladies' fingers are not good if you're a phlegmy person. It increases phlegm in your body, and it's not advised. But there are other vegetables, like for instance, tomatoes, aubergine, or what do you call it? Aubergine or eggplant. This lady's fingers. These are typical vegetables which are not good for you if you're a phlegmy person, if you're with a cold all the time, if you have kata, if you're sneezing. This increases the amount of phlegm inside of your body. So that is really not advised that you should have it too often. So that's what it looks like. I'm not too sure if it's really clear through Zoom, but it looks yummy. And you can typically have it with anything, rice, bread, roti, anything, or even just plain and simple, just like that, you can have it, yeah? So that's another dish which I'm gonna leave here. Oh yeah, and my dad, who's sitting next to me, trying to help me out wherever needed, reminds me that lady's finger also helps in bringing down the sugar levels in your body. So if you're diabetic, typically you're asked to have more lady's fingers in your diet. It really helps.
Hashini, somebody's asking if you know why it's called lady fingers.
Because it looks like a lady's finger. I don't know. It doesn't look like my finger, but maybe I'm not lady enough for it. But yeah, it's just you know, it's just how it appears to look like. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the fish now. So today I'm going to make vinegar fish, which is a typical southern, typical recipe from the south of Sri Lanka. Not really not really much known in the rest of the areas of the country. But since my origins are also from the south, this is a family recipe which has been you know, passed down from my father's side of the family to my mother's side of the family, and now to me, and hopefully to Kaylee, my baby, who's just 8 months, who I can't wait to teach all these things to, will also carry it forward. So I showed you the fish before, cleaned and cutted. So once you wash the fish in the final wash, just make sure you leave about, you know, 2 or 3 tablespoons of that washed water with the fish, because that helps in wrapping the marinade that we're going to use in here. So I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt for the marinade. And again, real chili powder, 2 teaspoons. Or maybe 2.5, yeah. Then I've got black pepper, which has been ground or crushed black pepper. You can crush it at the moment, that's the best. But in the interest of time, I you know, crushed it already. 2 teaspoons of that. And again, lime.
Hi, Sheeny. Are these ingredients from your garden? Any of them? Someone's asking.
The green chilies, the curry leaves, the lime, yeah, the lime. So I'm gonna, sorry, I'm just gonna hold it there for a bit. I'm gonna use my fingers and nicely wrap around the ingredients that we added here on the fish, right? So it needs to, if you like, you can create some slits on the fish with a knife and then do this. But then it tends to become a bit too spicy because of all the chili and the pepper that I've added. So I usually don't do that. But you know, it's the right amount when you just wrap it around and leave it for a while. It really absorbs the necessary flavors. That's spicy enough for me. But if you like more spice, you can add a few slits on the fish on both sides and then make sure that the spices are absorbed better. So right, so I've done that, and we're going to leave this aside for a few minutes to get marinated. Make sure when you use fish to marinate, that is well thawed, because if it's cold on the outside or in the inside, it doesn't absorb the flavors. If you want the flavors to really be absorbed, make sure it's well thawed, but of course, yeah, not too thawed, not that, you know, not boiled, but so I've closed that and I've left it for a while. Typically, I should be washing my fingers, but I'm going to wipe it today. Right. So the question you asked before, which ingredients are from my garden? The green chilies, the curry leaves, the lime for today. But we also have capsicum, tomatoes, ginger. Yeah, we have those 3 also in the garden, but they're not, you know, they can't be harvested right now. They're still small plants. Oh yeah, and even the lady's finger itself. Yeah, the little plants like that. So no vegetables yet. Right. So the fish is now marinating. The next, I will take up the next item on the list is to make algala. Now, algala is a sweet and spicy sweetmeat. It's a traditional sweetmeat, typically Sri Lankan, found nowhere else in the world, but very easily made because of the ingredients availability now, anywhere. It's Agala is a sweetmeat. Sri Lankan sweetmeats are mostly made. I mean, they're made throughout the year for all sorts of occasions and celebrations, but mostly during the Sinhalese and Tamil New Year, which happens somewhere around April. So the same time when Songkran happens in Southeast Asia, we also celebrate the New Year here. So Agala is typically made for celebrations, but tip is that it's also made, it's also carried by travelers and especially, I think Gretchen, this will be useful for you, for hikers. What they say is that the pepper in the agala really gives a kick and doesn't, doesn't make you feel tired, and makes you, kind of gives that burning sensation inside so that it keeps you going. And also it's rice flour and a little bit of sweetness that will, give you a boost of energy. So and also it can be kept for a long time. So even over maybe about a week, it can be kept outside. You don't need a fridge for it. So you can, this is a really good tip if you like hiking and adventuring out there. This is a very light thing that you can carry in your backpack. Yeah. So Agala, the base, as I said earlier, is rice flour. Now here I have taken red rice, which has been soaked, dried, and pound into a powder, into a flour rather. You can also take the white version of it, but what happens is when you take the white rice flour, the agala turns out lighter in color. Not that it really matters, but I prefer to take the red rice flour, which I'm doing today. And we will need treacle. Now treacle is typically made with kitul, or the fishtail palm, as we call it in Sri Lanka. But treacle can also be made with coconut sap or any other palm sap, for instance, palmyra. We feel the tastiest treacle is made out of the fishtail palm, and there is also the treacle which is made out of sugarcane. For those of you who haven't seen sugarcane, that's one of that for you. So it's a type of grass which really typically has leaves all around like this. I mean, it's cut and it's used very much by the Tamil community in Sri Lanka in most of their recipes. So I brought one of these to try out certain recipes at home. But what you can do is you just take small slices of it and split it into maybe fourths or eighths, and you can just munch on it. It's just pure sugar. So this is what is used to make sugar, by the way. And it's just pure sugar. And treacle is made out of sugarcane as well. But today, as I said, I'm using the kitul treacle. Now, if you can't find kitul treacle, there are, as I said, the alternatives are there, but you can also use bees honey or maple syrup, things that you will find much easier in places like Hawaii. Even golden syrup, yeah? But of course, as you know, the bases are different. So today what I'm going to do is to start off the akala while our fish gets marinated. Take a pot, keep it on the stove, and for this I'm adding about a teacup of treacle. Add the treacle into the pan and let it boil up. Make sure you use a low to medium flame because you don't want the treacle to burn, and it burns pretty fast. So you just, under a low to medium flame, you heat up the treacle. It thins. When you heat treacle, which is a pretty thick syrup, it thins out. don't worry. I mean, it's always best if it's thick and nice and rich, but it thins out when you warm it up. But if you take it out and leave it to cool, once again, the thickness will come back. But we're not going to do that today. We're just going to warm it up. And the next item will be, we will add the rice flour. So for half a cup of treacle, I'm using about 1 to 1.5 cups, 1 to 1.25 cups of rice flour. This is really, you know, I really eyeball my recipes. I don't stick to quantities, but you can really look at how it kind of mixes together. And if you feel that it's still too liquidy, you can keep on adding the rice flour. And if you feel it's too thick, that you're in a bit of a bad spot there because you can't add the treacle later on. So you need to make sure that you start adding the rice flour slowly. And now, right now, the treacle has started to, bubble up, which means it's going to burn soon. So before that happens, you start adding the rice flour. And keep stirring because it tends to burn otherwise. Okay, so that is about 1 cup of rice flour. I'm going to add a little bit more. Keep mixing. I'm sorry, the mixture is a bit too runny yet. So I'm going to add maybe 2 more tablespoons of rice flour. Yeah, that should give the adequate thickness. Right. So once you mix the rice flour, lower the flame to minimum. Lower the flame to a minimum and add, for this amount of rice flour and treacle, you're going to add I'm going to add half a teaspoon of salt and the key ingredient, ground pepper, about 1 teaspoon, right? And for this, we will also need a little bit of cardamom flour, cardamom powder, just a dash of it, yeah? Just a dash, maybe about 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom powder. Gives a nice taste to it. You can leave it out if you don't like the taste of it. And mix everything together well. Yeah, so in the meantime, if you can tell me in the chat box, what type of flours have you had in your food? Maybe tapioca flour, maybe gram flour. So flours are typically made out of grains and yams. So tell me what type of flours you've had. Because I'd like to learn if I've, if I haven't tried out any flour which is available in this big wide world. So I'm going to take this out of the stove now. So you see the thickness here, it's not runny. It's kind of soft but not hard, but it's solidify. And also you need to remember when it cools down, when this mixture cools down, it tends to stick together more. So make sure it's not really runny, but make sure it's not rock hard either, because then you're going to just break your teeth while you eat it, yeah? So what I'm going to do is take a good flat surface, add a little bit more of the rice flour, sprinkle it. And typically, spread this. Spread this not because you want a flat outcome, but because you need it to cool fast, right? Okay, so I have my fans going on here, so it's gonna hopefully cool faster. But if not, if not, just leave it out for about half an hour. It completely cools down. I'm gonna take this and leave it aside. And a little bit of rice flour I will be sprinkling on top so that it makes it easier to handle the paste, yeah? So now I'm gonna wash my hands because I've touched fish and I don't want to start rolling the agala before with fish in my hand. 1 second.
I feel this is better than a meditation class. I've never been so relaxed.
Yeah, cooking is a real relaxer for me too. I use it to calm down when I have a fight with my husband or my parents. I'm really tired from doing things with the baby. It's good. It's my outlet. And I know for a lot of people, cooking is an outlet. Okay, so this is cooling down. It's not completely cooled down, but I'm gonna So I'm gonna mix it up again. I'm mixing it up with the loose rice flour. So you saw it was a nice brown, dark brown paste which we put on this board, and now it's gaining a little bit more white color on the surface because of the loose rice flour that we added. Right, so you'll get a ball like this basically, Now it's really malleable and you can, it's not sticky at all. Earlier it was sticky when you put it on the rice flour, but now it's not sticky at all. You can take a cookie cutter and cut shapes out of it. But typically the traditional agdala in Sri Lanka are little balls. So take a little piece of it between your palms, just round it up. Once that is done, roll it on top of the loose rice flour once again. And that's good to go. So that's what it looks like in the end. Little balls, which you can pack in a little box and carry when you're hiking, So this is, I'm going to take a bite of it to show you the inside. So you see it's pretty white on top because of the rice flour wrapped. And it's still brown inside. And it's really yummy because of the treacle I've used. It's quite a good treacle. So, and it's got that hint of pepper, which makes it spicy. So it's really, it's a kick. You can't be sleepy and have agala because you instantly wake up. The salt and the pepper and the sweetness really, gives a kick and you can really wake up with it. It's really nice. You can have it again any time of the day. So I'm going to leave the rest of the paste away to make some for the evening. Okay. So I've got a new cutting board here, which I will use for the fish. So typically, I would leave the fish marinating for half an hour to 1 hour, but in the interest of time today, I'm not going to leave it for that long. But what I'm going to do first is for those 2 fishes that I had taken, I'm going to take 1 big onion, red onion, big red onion. We also call it Bombay onion. I don't know why we call it the Bombay onion. Again, halve it. Oops, a bit not good in the middle. So I'll halve this and slice it up. So again, to remind you, the fish marinade had salt, pepper, chili powder, real chili powder, and lime. Right. Now, since we're preparing the rest of the ingredients to start cooking the fish, now I'm going to add, in addition to the lime, which it was just half a lime that I added. In addition to the lime, I'm going to add some coconut vinegar. Once again, vinegar is made with different farms as well, but coconut vinegar is what we use here in Sri Lanka mostly. So for these 2 fishes, I'm using 4 tablespoons of vinegar. I'm adding that, at this point in time because I want it to retain the flavor. Because sometimes when you leave it for too long, the fish absorbs everything and the flavor gets a bit reduced. So I don't want that to happen. So I've added the vinegar at the last minute. Again, make sure it gets wrapped around the fish. I'm going to leave that back. We halved and sliced an onion here. I'm going to put the pot on the stove. Once again, a little bit of tempering with coconut oil. About 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. 2 teaspoons of mustard seed, black mustard seed, and we'll let that pop. Be sure to make a large enough pan where you can lay the fish flat, because fish gets broken into pieces very fast, so you don't want to handle it too much once it's on the stove, right? So make sure that you have a flat surface and a pan or pot that is big enough to not bury the fish. And also I'm using I'm using a flat spoon here so that I can handle the fish carefully and not break it up into pieces. So I'm going to allow the mustard seeds to pop. And in the meantime, I'm going to take curry leaves again. 2 large sprigs. Separate the leaves from it. About 4 cloves of garlic. Slice it up. You could even chop it up if you like. So while I do that, you can, again, pop quiz. How many types of onions have you had in your food? Can you tell me? There are white onions. You can consider garlic also as a type of onion for this purpose. Let me know what type of onions you've had and what is available in your home country or in your location, which we all can try out someday. So that's 4 cloves of garlic. That's it. The black mustard seeds have started to pop. Not sure if you hear the sound, maybe not, a bit too far. I'm going to add this in. The sliced halved onions, halved and sliced onions, the separated curry leaves, and the chopped up or sliced up 4 cloves of garlic. And I'm just squashing the onion a little bit so that it separates into half rings. Okay, I'm going to increase the flame so that it, the onion starts, well, not caramelizing, but, it starts browning. So vinegar is really strong. It's a very strong acid. I can smell it here. If you don't like vinegar, you won't like this dish. So you can just forget about having vinegar fish. But if you like vinegar, still hold the amounts. Don't put too much of it because then the fish tends to become too sour, and the coconut milk, which you'll be adding on later, can tend to curdle. So don't do that. Just stick to minimum quantities just so that the flavor comes out, and that's all you need is that. Right. Let's wait for that to brown a little bit. And now I will talk a little bit about coconut milk. Coconut milk is obviously the juice that you get out of the coconut kernel. But its use is in certain countries, they use it, certain countries they don't. In the countries that use it, they use it in different ways. Coconut milk, basically how coconut milk is extracted here in Sri Lanka is you grate the coconut. We have equipment called coconut graters, which I haven't seen in certain other countries. But we have special coconut graters. Some can be attached to a little surface. Some come with a little seat so that you can sit down on it and scrape the coconut. Some, have a little magnetic or a rubber plug, which you can just keep it on any surface and do it with your hand. So you now even the machines are available, so you can really use anything. And you grate the coconut. You first break the coconut into 2, grate it. Then typically a little bit of warm water and a little bit of cold water. Mix it together, and again, I use my hands. Hands are the best. Or you can even put it in a grinder, and squash it, squeeze it, handle it well, and make sure all the coconut milk comes out, and then strain it out so that you don't get the pieces of coconut in it, or the grated pieces in it. You squeeze out the coconut milk. Typically, according to the amount of water you have added, you can either get thick coconut milk or thin coconut milk. Now, obviously, if you add more water, you get thin coconut milk. For this recipe, I'm using thick coconut milk. So now the onions have started to brown, or rather browned halfway. I'm going to lay the 2 fishes inside the pan, flat. And I'm going to add the marinade into this so that we don't, lose any of those spicy goodness. Right. And I'm going to, so this again, cook it on a medium flame. You don't want to, overcook the fish. I'm going to add the coconut milk just to cover maybe half the side of the fish, as in the height of the fish, maybe half of it, or a little bit more. Right. turmeric powder. So when you mix it up, make sure you are just touching the liquid part, not the fish. Don't meddle too much with the fish. You may feel that it's not mixed up enough, but it's okay. When it heats up, everything tends to get mixed up well. So yeah, going back to the coconut milk, now you get coconut milk in bottles, bottled up, or even canned. What you get in the cans usually is the thick coconut cream, which you need to dilute quite a bit before you're eating curries like this. And you get the coconut milk, which you can use straight away. You also get it in Tetra Packs, but I tend to avoid Tetra Packs because of the environmental pollution it creates. And none of us, we still know what to do with Tetra Packs. Oh yeah, and my dad reminds me again, there's another version, coconut milk powder. So what they do is in the factories, they extract the coconut milk and then they spray dry it and make coconut milk powder. This is not coconut flour, that's different from this. This is coconut milk powder, which is packaged and sold in the supermarket. So for ease of, so that you don't have to go through the whole harangue of grating a coconut and liquidizing it and taking all the goodness out, you can just add the coconut milk powder into the curry when it's almost about to be taken out of the fire. So now my fish is nicely bubbling up, but I'll leave it there because the coconut milk has to get cooked. They say raw coconut, I don't know who they are, but they say raw coconut milk could, give you a bad stomach if you can't digest it. Some people can't digest it well, so it could give you a bad stomach. So you have to always make sure that the coconut milk is cooked well. So how you know coconut milk is cooked well is that it bubbles and then bubbles come down. So that's when you know that the coconut milk is completely cooked. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to chop up. So these are what we call capsicums here. I know in certain countries, the big bell pepper, the one which comes in 3 colors, red, yellow, and green, the traffic light colors, is also called capsicum in certain countries. But this is what we call capsicum. It's a type of chili. It's not strong in terms of flavor, but it has a very unique flavor. But it's not too strong. But you do get the shorter version of it, which we in Sinhala call puna, which is really strong. It's really spicy, but the same flavor, right? So for this purpose, I'm using the long, big capsicum. I'm taking 2 of those, and I will again, just so that it looks nice, we'll chop it up in thick diagonal slices, not thin, thick, because we want it to be in the curry for crunch, as well as to give it some volume. So thick slices like that. I'm not sure if you can see it, but
Yeah.
So 2 capsicums.
Arshini, later, will you repeat everything that's in the pan? I've lost track because I.
Sure, I will. Yeah, it's a bit of a lengthy recipe, so I will do that. So 2 capsicums, and I will also, cut 2 tomatoes into 8. So halve it again, and halve it again. So that it basically looks like this. Yeah. Wedges. It looks like a wedge. So I'm going to do that to 2 tomatoes. Oh, this fish smells great. So the coconut milk has cooked halfway now. I'm going to turn the fish so that it cooks on both sides equally. Please be careful when you do this because you don't, as I said, you don't want to break the fish up. you know, turned it. So I'm cutting another tomato into 8. And be sure not to squash the tomato when you cut it, because when you squash it, all the pulp comes out, and then ultimately you're left with nothing, just the skin. So you want the veggies to somewhat remain the same when it's done cooking. So I'm going to add these in, the tomatoes and the capsicums, into the dish. And I will take another big red onion. And this, I'm not going to halve it. I'm going to cut this in rings. So whole rings, full rings. You can make it a little thick. Again, you don't want it dissolved in the curry. Thick onion rings. Just one would do. One onion. Put that in there. And just spread it across the curry so that it just gets slightly cooked. You don't overcook that. As I said, you leave it for the crunch mostly, and just so it looks good. It really looks good. With all those colors, the purple of the onion, the red of the tomato, and the green of the capsicum, and the yellow color curry, the fish curry. I'll try to show this to you. Right. So it's bubbling up, but I'm not sure if you can, yeah, I think you can see a little bit of it. I can't tilt it too much because then it'll all spill out. But yeah, that's what it looks like. If you like the color to be lighter, you can add a little bit more coconut cream so that you don't, put too much liquid. But the best part of this is the curry, the sauce, right? It's really tasty. I'm going to taste a little bit so that I'm sure that the amount of salt is enough. Yeah, and the vinegar really cuts through. Yeah, that's yummy. So there are another little story. We always use a teaspoon or a spoon and put a drop of that onto our palm and lick it up. And that's how we do the taste testing. Not straight into your mouth like that. We think, Sri Lankans think it's very unhygienic to do that. I've seen a lot of people doing that. I have no issues with it, but Sri Lankans, are very finicky about that usually. So taste testing, always use your palm. Then it also gives you a feel of how thick or thin it is, and you can adjust it accordingly. When it's in your mouth, it gets mixed up with your saliva, and you wouldn't know the thickness of it. But when you do it on your palm, But of course, you have to be careful that you don't burn your palm, right? So yeah, that's almost done. I'm gonna now. So you don't cook the fish too much, right? It's just cooked right. The vegetables are still there with all the original colors. You can just now switch off the stove and cover it, and that will do the cover it, and that will do the rest of the cooking. That's it. The stove is switched off, right? So that's that, and we're done with the vinegar fish. Again, this can be had with rice typically, but it can also be had with roti or bread or string hoppers. Those are again Sri Lankan dishes which share some relationship with the string hoppers and hoppers in India, but they're different. But yeah, this is a typical fish curry that can be easily cooked up to accompany any of those main courses. Right, so we're just left with 15 more minutes and one more item to go, and that is ginger tea. How can you do a cooking demonstration in Sri Lanka without tea, right? Right, so for this purpose, I've got this tiny little teapot. to which I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of, this is black tea, Ceylon black tea. The grade of it is BOPF, meaning broken orange peco fannings. So it's almost like powder. The tea leaf has been, ground down to a really tiny pieces. We like that because that gives a better or a darker liqueur. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon for myself. I'm just making 1 cup of tea. And typically, if you're making milk tea, you would add 1 more teaspoon for the pot. So if you have 2 people or 3 people, you would add 3 teaspoons. And if it's milk tea that you're going to have, 1 more teaspoon for the pot, right? So you can Google up Charlie's 5 golden rules of tea making, which is what we at home follow. That's not a Sri Lankan thing, but we at home follow the Charlie's 5 golden rules of making tea. So today I'm not going to add 1 teaspoon for the pot because I'm going to make plain tea, as in I'm not going to add milk into it. So I've got the water already boiled to 100 degrees Celsius and store it in this flask because I didn't have the time to do the boiling right now. So add enough for 1 cup of tea. Hot water enough for 1 cup of tea. And we will let that brew for 5 minutes. So Charlie's 5 golden rules, one of the rules is that you let it brew or steep for 5 minutes. And until that happens, you know ginger, right? That's a whole ginger there. But I've cleaned up a piece of it, basically skin it out. And I'm going to take maybe about an inch lengthwise, an inch of ginger root. And I'm going to slice it up. Some people like chopping it and adding it to the tea, but I prefer to slice it up. And then, slice it up into considerable size and then squash it a little bit. That kind of breaks down the fibers in the ginger root and allows all the aroma and the taste and the flavor come out. So and not too much also, then it all just juices up. Just squash it a little bit so that the juices start to just flow out, but doesn't come out all together. Right? And now this is still brewing, but I'm going to add the ginger into that while it's brewing. Well, I'm adding half of it, that. And I'm adding half of the rest of the ginger into the teacup itself. So when you drink ginger tea, you use your teeth as a strainer. So you drink it like this. Yeah? So that you don't, of course, no one's stopping you from eating the pieces of ginger, but if you don't like to eat the ginger, you just need to strain it with your teeth. Okay, so the tea is almost done, about 2 more minutes to go. But in the meantime, before we strain it out, so tea can be accompanied by milk, with milk, or sugar. I have some brown sugar here. I feel for ginger tea, brown sugar gives a better taste, if you like sugar, that is. You can add a little treacle or honey or maple syrup, or you could add some lime if you like. But today I'm going to also introduce you to Kitul jaggery, which looks like this, and typically comes wrapped around in Kitul fronds or foil like this.
Can you bring it closer, Hashini?
Sorry?
Can you bring it closer to the camera?
Yeah. Yeah. it's an odd shape, right? It's an odd shape like islands. I'll tell you why. That's because when the pittul sap is taken out of the tree, it's stored in a pot, and then what they do is they put it on the fire and they keep boiling it. So the more you boil it, the first product you get out of it is the treacle. You keep on boiling the treacle, it solidifies. And when it solidifies, when it's almost in a semi-solid state, you take coconut shells. So this is how we reuse waste coconut shells, right? You take coconut shells and you pour this semi-solid version into the coconut shells. And then when it dries up, it gives you a cake like this, and you just tap the coconut shell and it comes out. So it takes the jaggery takes the shape of the coconut shell, right? So it's really yummy. I mean, this is a typical substitute we use for sugar in Sri Lanka. And in Sri Lanka is, I think, maybe in Kerala, but I'm not too sure of that. Sri Lanka, we use this a lot in our sweetmeats, in our desserts, and even cakes, like, you know, the Western, not really Western, I won't use that word, but cakes that have been introduced to Sri Lanka from Europe and places, we use this, and we call it jaggery cake, and it's quite delicacy here. So jaggery is really nice with ginger tea. So I'm just gonna poke the knife there, and just, you know, it chips out. I mean, don't take tiny chips. You can grate it if you're making other types of dessert. But, you know, take two little pieces, keep on the side of this teacup that you're going to use. And now the tea is done, so we are going to use a strainer and strain it out. Right. Now we've got ginger tea. Stir that out a little bit. If you like, you can add sugar into it, but don't have sugar and jaggery. Although my husband would, but don't do that. So not too good for you. But yeah, so this is really yummy. With so that's the color of the liquor. If you like it lighter, you can add a little bit more hot water. If you like it darker, you can steep it for longer. And you have it with the jaggery typically, especially on the beach after a long day. After maybe, you know, having all these rotis and katasambols and bandaka and fish, you know, to top it all off, you can have the tea, and that's just really nice. I'm going to give this to my dad because he loves
it. The cameraman.
Okay, so I'm just going to finish off with your request, Christina. You wanted me to go through the recipe of the fish again. Unfortunately, I can't. I'm not sure if you see it, but yeah, maybe I'll send you. I'll post a photo of this on Discord so that everyone can see it. So what you do with the fish is take clean, white, small white fish, whole fish, clean it out, gut it, descale, add salt, pepper, chili powder, and lime juice, and let it marinate for about half an hour to 1 hour if you like more. And then, you know, 10 minutes away from actually taking it to cook, you add about 4 teaspoons of vinegar, I mean, based on quantity. You add the coconut vinegar into it. Let it marinate for another 10 minutes or so. And then you take a pan, leave it on the stove, put some coconut oil, put some black mustard seeds. When they start to pop, you add onion, which has been halved and sliced, some curry leaves, a few cloves of garlic, and let that you know, fry up until the onion becomes a bit brown. And then when the onion is brown, you add the 2 fish in there, and you add the coconut milk. Add the coconut milk and a little bit of turmeric, and then let it cook. Let the coconut milk come to a boil. And then almost when it's done, I mean, in the meantime, you will turn the fish just once, not too many times. And then when it's almost done, you will cut up a capsicum, slices it, thick slices, cut rings of onion, and cut a tomato into eighths, and add that all in. Leave it for like maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes. So take it out of the stove or close the stove and cover it and let that do the cooking. And your fish is done. Right? I don't think I left out any ingredients, but any questions? I think we have about 3 more minutes. So I'm done. I'm done. So that's all I have to offer for you. But I'm really looking forward to looking at the chat box so that I can learn from you all. I hope you all have all answered the questions that I have asked throughout the session. Thanks. I can see some hands being clapped over there. Thank you.
Yeah, the chat box has been very active and entertaining. So lots of compliments to the chef in there. So yeah, do check that out. And a couple, I think one question I remember, well, no, there's a few buried in there, but we'll leave it for Discord. This was perfect, Harshini.
Okay, great. So yeah, does that mean there are no questions? Anyone else who wants to pick up a question now via voice?
If anybody has something quick they wanted to ask. I think there was a couple, but they
don't worry, if it's too long a response, I'll respond on Discord. But if it's short, I can answer.
Harshini, I think my questions was on the chat, so you can have a look on that, because I was asking about the nutritional values on it regarding, because I've seen and observed most of the traditional cuisines and home cuisines, they are mainly referring to in a traditional way, but sometimes it's not really referring to the value of nutritional terms, so that's why I'm asking for that.
Right, yeah, that I think warrants a long answer. I will send that to you on Discord, no problem, because each of these items that I cooked today or made today have their own nutritional value. And they're all healthy foods. There's nothing unhealthy in it that I have added, no preservatives, artificial preservatives. Of course, vinegar and stuff is a natural preservative, but lots of stuff that you can earn health-wise from the dishes that I've made today.
Mm.
Okay, so I guess that's it.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to just appreciate how much preparation it took you and your entire household. I mean, I could tell from the boiled water, just everything really means a lot to all of us. Thank you for that.
No
all your
You're most welcome, and anytime anyone wants to learn anything Sri Lankan, if I know it, I will teach you. If I don't know it, I will find out how to make it, and I'll let you know. So thank you, and ayubowan, aloha to everyone, and see you soon, and we'll keep chatting.
Mahalo, Harshini.
Mahalo, bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for joining.